You are listening to Hillary Topper on Air.
Welcome to Hillary Topper on Air, where we talk about all things endurance sports, exploration, and making the most out of your time. I'm Hillary Topper, and I cannot wait to share with you the art of blending triathlon training with the thrill of travel. Whether you're an athlete looking for adventure or a traveler seeking inspiration, this episode is for you. I'll be catching up with Monica Gould later in the show. Monica is an inspiring traveler and marathon runner who recently completed the Tokyo Marathon and explored the wonders of Thailand and Japan. Her experiences will give us a glimpse into how traveling with purpose can change you, both as an athlete and as a person. Before we move on, I must say that I am so appreciative of our sponsors and must take this time out to thank them. The Russo Law Group, PC, Long Island's signature elder law, special needs, and estate planning law firm. For more information, visit vjrussolaw.com. That's vjrussolaw.com. I'd also like to thank PlayTry. Get everything swim, bike, and run at PlayTry. They have locations across the country with their main headquarters in Dallas, Texas. You could go to playtry.com/store. That's playtry.com/store. Or if you're interested in franchise opportunities, you could check out playtry.com and go to Own a Store, and you can find all the information there. They're a great brand. They have so many different options, and I know you will get great prices and a great selection there. Triathlon training doesn't have to pause when you're on the go. If anything, traveling opens new doors for creative workouts and unique experiences. Plus, it offers the perfect opportunity to explore cultures and landscapes you'd never experienced in your own hometown. A long run along an ancient path, a swim in crystal clear turquoise water, or an unforgettable bike ride with mountain backdrops. These are the moments that feed the soul of a traveling triathlete. For me, a recent highlight was a trip to Becerra in the Pyrenees Mountains of Spain. I hit the slopes for some exceptional cross training, skiing against stunning panoramic views. There's something humbling about switching up your workouts and taking in the power of nature in a setting like that. It was gorgeous. And then there was the cruise I took to the Caribbean. Talk about a swimmer's paradise. I jumped at the chance to swim in the warm, sparkling waters of the Caribbean Sea. It's just you, the water, and the colorful underwater world that feels miles away from the static black line of the pool back home. Travel doesn't always have to be about training either. One of the most fulfilling parts of these adventures is to learn about the places you go. My past journeys have taken me to Greece and Turkey, where ancient ruins meet vibrant cultures, and imagine sipping tea in a cafe in Istanbul after a day of sightseeing. That's the kind of enrichment no finisher medal can replace. Another favorite trip was cruising through Japan and South Korea. The blend of tradition and modern world is simply unparalleled. While in Japan, the opportunity for fresh sushi and serene temples added layers to my experience beyond just running and cycling. And South Korea, well, those bustling markets and gorgeous coastal landscapes are unforgettable. I've got more travel plans cooking as well. I hope to visit my favorite destinations in the future, from Greece to Turkey and beyond. Whether I'm on a cruise ship or running shoes, I know there's always a new perspective to gain from venturing out into the world. Now I'd like to welcome Monica Gould to the show. So, Monica, welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into traveling?
Sure. So I was born in Poland. I came to the United States when I was about 7 years old. Um, went to undergrad in upstate New York, went to grad school in New York City, and worked. I worked all my life, like 60, 80, 100-hour weeks. I worked in investment banking for a bunch of years, in equity research. And, I traveled a lot for work, but I was just so driven and so focused. I never took an extra day. I never stayed the weekend. I'd go to Europe and, my friends would be going to Munich for Oktoberfest and I would come back home. And I don't know. That was my 20s and 30s. And, once my kids got a little bit older and started to be able to take care of themselves, I decided, hey, it's time for me to see more and explore. And I did start taking that extra day and that weekend around work trips. But, I realized I had never been in Asia. So, actually, my first tour to Asia was a bike tour. And there's a guy that runs a big bike tour on Long Island, Ride to Montauk, and he was advertising it in his newsletter, even though I never did his ride yet. Um, so anyway, that kind of sparked my desire, and you just never know how much time you have left, and I just want to see as much as I can, while I'm still here.
Absolutely. So, so do you at this point mostly do bike tours, or you kind of do both?
Both bike and running. The bike tours tend to be a lot more expensive because you are on a cruise ship, or at least, with the bike tour company that we've been going with, you're on a cruise ship, either a river cruise ship or an ocean cruiser. And you get all your meals and drinks, everything's included, it's fully supported. So it's a little bit more bougie. But the running vacations are great too. There's some places that are really hard to bike. So I've had the opportunity to take advantage of both. There's also a woman that teaches swimming that has now exotic destinations, including Fiji. So that's now on my bucket list.
Absolutely. So, out of all these places, and you've explored a lot of places, I follow you on Facebook and Instagram, and I see all your amazing adventures. Can you tell me what your favorite destination is and why?
Sure. So it's hard to pick a favorite. It's kind of like, all my kids are my favorites. But I'd say the two that stand out for similar reasons would be Tahiti and Croatia. Um, with Tahiti, we got to bike a different island each day. Sometimes, if the island was small, we'd do a morning bike on one island and an afternoon bike on another island. Just such a great way to explore, and you get to see almost everything, during that. The blue water, turquoise water was just amazing. And then, there were lots of other excursions like snorkeling. I swam with sharks. They were baby sharks, but still I swam with sharks. And, we went to a pearl farm. It was just great experience. And, you got to see so much more than you could in any other way. And similarly, Croatia, which I had no idea was, made up largely of islands. It was a similar thing where we would bike, one island in the morning, another in the afternoon. We went to a truffle farm, watch a truffle dog, dig up truffles. We were from the ocean to the mountains, and yeah, it was just amazing. Plus, food was out of this world. So.
Did you find them to be hilly, these little islands?
So Tahiti, not really, although with this one group, they always have rides. So they usually have 3 rides per day, and they have a map. They have like an easy ride, which will be 20, 30 miles. They'll have a medium ride, which is 30, 40, and then they have like a 50, 60 mile ride that always includes some kind of crazy hill that could be like an 18% grade. And what they'll do is for the, non-iron couples, they will offer a boost. So they'll get a truck to ride people up that crazy hill, for those that don't feel like taking on that challenge. Croatia was definitely hilly. The very first time we got off the boat, it was like immediately a 10% grade, which I couldn't do that first day. So I wish I had trained a little bit more on hills. But by the end of the week, I was zooming up those 10% and more grades, without any problem. So yeah, there's hills.
Okay. So, are there any destinations that surprised you, like either in a good way or a challenging way?
Yeah, so our first destination was surprising in so many ways. It was our first bike tour. We had asked, we have both mountain bikes, hybrids, and road bikes. So we asked, which kind of bike we should bring. And they said, oh, no, road bike. This is all road. It wasn't road. There's no roads in Vietnam and Cambodia. I mean, very little roads. It's like we had clay, we had sand, we had gravel. We had every kind of surface other than road. And not only that, but we were using our iPhones back then for navigation. So it was before we bought our bike computers. So you had sunlight readability issues in the middle of the day, and there were so many turns. And the roads didn't look like roads. They looked like sidewalks, or like, so many people got lost, that they ended up putting the bike tour the local bike support folks ended up staging people at various turns to make sure that people didn't get lost. And on top of that, it was also challenging because there were, oftentimes the cruise ship, which was a river cruise, there, would drop us off at one place, and then we would have to meet the boat at the end of the day somewhere else. And they have very tight time constraints. They can only be in dock for X amount of time. So you can't be late. If you miss the boat, you're on your own and trying to find the boat at the next destination. And sometimes you had like 3 ferry crossings. It was wild. It was absolutely wild. But I loved it.
Did you miss the boat?
No, we did not miss the boat.
That's good. That's
We did,
good.
I think one time, where we got split up, that where there was supposed to be a road, and what happened was the local bike tour company had re-scoped out all the rides to make sure everything was, copacetic. And that was 3 weeks before the tour, and then construction began. They weren't aware a whole bridge was out, a road was out. My husband and I got split up, and I ended up in like a sand trap for miles walking with another couple. So I think that day I had to call ahead to let them know that we got stuck, and we might be a few minutes late, but we did make it.
Oh, that's good. So, when you do these bike tours with the riverboat, do people generally stay together? Is it with the tour guide, or do you kind of like get a map and say, we'll see at the end of the day?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's some people that sometimes there's couples or, families that will travel together and they'll stick together, or you make friends along the way and you find out that they're kind of at the same speed as you. Like, I can ride fast, but I also like to take a lot of pictures, especially if, you're in these beautiful areas. So,
Mhm.
we tend to stick with people that are kind of that speed. Yeah, usually tend to see people, and some people leave the boat early, have a super early breakfast. So you have the really early morning people like yourselves, and the more late morning people like us that will have a late breakfast and then get going. So.
Mhm. Okay. And so, I want to take a step back. So, could you talk a little bit about your triathlon experience? I know you're a triathlete. Can you talk a little bit about that before we get on with some of the other questions?
Sure. So, my daughter was a swimmer, and I used to sit in the parking lot while she would swim for 2.5 hours, and decided to, try my hand at swimming. It was at the Nassau County Aquatic Center. I also noticed that they do a pool triathlon. So I had taken some very basic lessons. I could barely swim 25 meters, and certainly not freestyle. So I was more of a breaststroke and backstroke person, but that was the first triathlon I signed up for. I kind of like a challenge. I don't know why. And so I thought I'd challenge myself and try that. And I didn't drown, and I wasn't the last person. I think I was the second to last out of the pool on that one. But, the bike and the run went well. And then I signed up for a master swimming at the same location, and then just kept signing up for other triathlons, the other ones being in the bay or in the ocean. And during COVID, we had our, do it yourself. And I think I did an Olympic, but it was, self-timed, and there were three of us, I think, at that time. So I'm still trying to work my way up to an Olympic. I don't know if I'll ever do a half iron, but yeah, it's fun.
Awesome. All right, so let's get back to some of these questions. So, for someone who hadn't done or never has done a bike tour before, what advice would you give them to help them get started in the process?
There's lots of great, tour companies out there. There's the ones with the boat, there's the ones that set up hotels. I have friends that have tried, Backroads and some other companies. So you definitely want to, kind of shop around and see what's within your budget, because these things can be, for two people, $18,000. It's yeah,
Yeah,
and
they're
then if you go to
expensive.
yeah, it can be really expensive. The running tours, are easily half of that, if even less than that. We brought our own bikes. That does save a lot of money. With the bike cases we have are fairly large, so we try to fly on airlines where we have status, so that we get, we don't have to pay for that. But renting bikes for two people can be, another $1,000. So it can get pretty expensive. Some of these remote destinations, you have to bring things like hand sanitizer and toilet paper. There are very rustic toilets in Southeast Asia, a little bit more than a hole in the ground. So that certainly helps. There's dude wipes, like some of these places you get so hot and sweaty, so you might want to have something to refresh. But if you're with the tour company, oftentimes they'll provide, water, hydration, towels, things like that to clean up with. And um uh but training, I think, especially since some of these rides do include some pretty gnarly hills. Hill training is definitely a must. But even for beginner riders, a lot of these tour companies will offer e-bikes if you want to rent an e-bike or bring your own e-bike.
Interesting.
So it's really, the skill level can be all the way from beginner to, iron people that I've seen on these tours.
Awesome. And do you find that traveling by bike allows you to connect more with like the local culture?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we get to see much more remote areas than you would in other ways. And a lot of these bike tour companies will, create very unique experiences. So, for example, when we were in New Zealand, they had a Maori family do traditional dances for us at a cultural center. This is something that if you walk in there, it's not an experience as a, regular tourist you'd be able to have on your own. Same with Tahiti. On every island, the governor or the mayor of the island, together with some local dancers and musicians, would put on a show for us every time we would come onto the island. We were able to eat. So there's uninhabited islands that will just have a restaurant, so to speak. And we had meals, we had lunches, we had dinners in these beautiful places that you can't get to in many other ways. So very much about connecting with nature, local culture, and yeah.
Yeah, cool. And what's your next adventure?
Let's see. So our next trip is in October, and we're going to Greece. It's also going to be doing, 7 or 8 islands. I also like to add a little before or after there. So we'll probably visit Turkey, Istanbul, and maybe a couple of other areas in Turkey before or after, and still kind of planning that one out.
Very cool. Very, very cool. To my fellow triathletes and endurance athletes and runners and swimmers and cyclists out there, traveling isn't about disruption to your training schedule. Instead, it's an invitation to adapt, be curious, and grow. You might even find yourself more motivated and inspired as you experience these new environments. Think beyond the routine and make the most of your travels, whether it's skiing in the Pyrenees, swimming in the Caribbean, or running through a buzzing city. Every adventure adds to the story of who we are as athletes. Thanks for joining in today to my episode of the Traveling Triathlete. And a big thank you to Monica Gould for joining us today. Wherever your next race or workout takes you, remember to take a moment to explore, connect, and enjoy the journey. Until next time, safe travels and happy training.